200 years ago, the British and Africans prospered together, selling gold and slaves. Then the Gold Coast became the world's biggest producer of cocoa. It was seen as the model colony, but in February 1948, the complacent British rulers suffered a terrible shock. A violent incident took place in Accra, the capital. A demonstration of 2,000 people protesting against the poor treatment of ex-servicemen got out of control. 12 policemen had the job of stopping them from getting to Christiansborg Castle, the home of the colonial governor. The two sides met at Christiansborg crossroads.
When we got to the crossroads, we were held up because we were then marching in the columns. And then what we saw was a resistance from the British Superintendent of Police, Mr. Emery, who would not allow us to further our advance to the castle.
The crowd in front were very close, perhaps 20, 25 yards, I don't know. I gave the order to fire, and nothing happened at all. We were obviously going to get overrun at any moment, and I retreated back onto the firing party and tore a rifle out of the hands of one of the men, and I myself fired at a man in front who was urging the crowd forward, and he was killed, and I think I fired a total of another 5 shots, and the crowd turned around and made off.
By nightfall, the city of Accra was in flames. Looters had stripped the stores of their goods, and rioters had opened the jails and released the prisoners. European women and children had been evacuated. Rioting broke out in towns throughout the colony. 29 died, and over 200 were injured.
It was a terrible sight, because going through the streets, all the windows were smashed. People were wandering around, I think, very happy with having had some drink, and so many cars had been turned over.
We brought out the fire brigade, but there was little we could do. We did save a few buildings from burning, but some of the citizens were actually slashing the houses with cutlasses, so we had to arm the fire brigade.
The executive of the United Gold Coast Convention, the party of educated professionals, immediately sent a telegram to the colonial office in London.
This thing happened on a Saturday 20th. On the 29th, the leaders of the convention saw a government official in the person of Jimmy Moxon and told him exactly what we had done, that we had sent a telegram to the Secretary of State asking that he should send a commission, for the government had broken down.
Police unable to protect life and property since early afternoon yesterday. Governor Creasy to be recalled and relieved of his onerous and impossible burden. The convention leaders offered to form a government. The governor, Sir Gerald Creasy, surprised them with his response.
We were not expecting to be arrested, but we were arrested, and we weren't very angry because they came and said, well, we don't really know whether you are the cause of it, but your presence here does not seem to conduce to peace, so we'll take you away.
Oh, I think it's not unfair to say Creasy panicked. You see, it was a situation which was totally beyond his previous experience. He had been in charge of the African division, but he had never served, as far as I know, in any capacity in any overseas territory. And he was just simply bewildered, and he just sort of threshed around trying to clutch at straws here and there.
When the news broke at the colonial office that Saturday evening, the whole African department was called in. They feared that the situation was out of control and that the governor was losing his grip.
There were too many telegrams, and all marked most immediate, which had to be dealt with instantly, day or night. And we felt that the messages in those telegrams might have been referred to some of the other people on the spot who understood the African mind much better.
The Labour government had been trying to give a share of power to Africans in all the British territories. But the old hands who ran them would have none of it, and to the French, Belgians, Portuguese, Spanish and Italians in their colonies, such ideas were beyond belief. Now the riots in the Gold Coast gave the Labour ministers their chance. They sent out a team, headed by Aiken Watson, a Labour Party supporter and lawyer, to say what should be done. His report said frustration over high prices and slow progress in housing, education and African political rights demanded action. Watson proposed that over the next 10 years, self-government should be introduced, with one man, one vote, exactly what the colonial diehards said would undermine both British rule and political stability in Africa. The colonial secretary, Arthur Creech Jones, accepted the report.
I think it was the turning point in British policy in Africa because the courage which Creech Jones as the colonial secretary and Andrew Cohen as the head of the African section of the Colonial Office showed in determining to go straight through with accepting its proposals created a momentum which led inevitably to independence for Ghana, even though the Labour government by that time had disappeared.
This reversal of policy led to 5 out of 6 of the men who had been jailed after the riots being picked to join an all-black committee to say how the country should be governed. The British believed that they would now have to share power with this moderate, educated elite if they were to keep their influence in Africa. But while the committee were preparing their report, there was a split in the ranks of the convention. Kwame Nkrumah, their paid General Secretary, led a massive breakaway movement, calling it the Convention People's Party, the CPP. From the moment he'd returned from England 18 months earlier to work for them, Nkrumah had made his strategy clear to the convention leaders.
At the first meeting, Kwame explained to them very clearly the sort of program which he was going to follow. He recommended that there should be a very strong organization and that there should be branches all over the country.